so business continuity. So this session is about explaining what business continuity is. So my name is Robert. I'm from Sweden, as you know now. Use the social media. Big thank you to all the sponsors making this happen. And short introduction of myself. I'm an MVP since 7 years back. I run a company called Sumner together with a fellow MVP in America. So we're global. I'm a cloud and solution principal architect. Fancy title, right? What that actually means is I try to help companies and people realize the possibility within technology, right? Use technology to empower the business, to make it more beneficial, more revenue. Not just money, but also time saving. I'm a trainer and a mentor. I go out and support different groups within companies. I deliver different trainings globally, and also I do consultant services globally. And I have 3 kids, married, big house, and no time left over, so I also write 3 books. So that's, that's that. So here's the agenda. We're going to look at what is business continuity. We're going to have a look at the possible technology that you could choose. This is from the Microsoft stack, right? So it will not the discussions will not only be pure Microsoft. I will toss in a bit of Veeam and maybe Parallels and maybe, other stuff. But different possible technologies. We're going to run it up with how to build the actual business continuity concept based on the Microsoft platform. Of course, demos and a Q&A. If there's anyone in the audience don't understand the English, just let me know and I rephrase it, explain it in some other words. Welcome, gents. All right, sounds good? Let's get started. So, business continuity. Anyone heard of it? No one? No one ever heard of business continuity? Sure? All right, good, because then you get some Swedish candy. Bribing with a smile, right? So this is sorting out the question marks. Yeah? Okay. No, of course not. So sorting out the question marks. What is business continuity? Business continuity is, the actual definition of business continuity is quite simple. Business continuity is actually an activity performed by you, sustaining and keeping your business up and running. Sounds quite simple, right? But what is the actual business? Well, the actual business is your business services. All right? So what is a business service? A business service is something that gives you either revenue or provide some kind of solution within the company, like the Exchange solution, right? That's email, business services mail solution. The CRM system, external web pages, so on and so forth. That's business services. Of course, those are not equally important. You need to tear them up. But from a business continuity perspective, it is very important that you guys understand that business continuity is an activity. It is not a one-time performed action and you're done. That's not. This is a continuously repeating task that you must perform. Many companies that I visit, when I do business continuity work, ends up with this. So they're actually too late, because business continuity is not something you do or start planning in an actual disaster. You're too late then, right? You need to think ahead, right? Be prepared. That's the game plan. Be prepared. There are different kind of components that builds up the business continuity concept. Some of them are this. We're going to look into a few of them more in detail. Some of them are just for knowing. But where do you actually start? Well, the best thing you can do is start by keeping things simple. Start small. How many of you guys are working with ETIL? ETIL. A few, all right, yeah, of course. When you implemented this concept, you took a few pieces, right? You didn't go all in. No, probably not. If you do that, it's unbearable. You can't imagine that or manage that because the organization needs to adapt to it also, right? The same goes with business continuity. Keep it simple. Start small. Build the concept. So the business continuity plan. This is the holy grail of business continuity. So the business continuity plan starts with your business service. Understanding what kind of services bring some kind of revenue to my business. What technology builds it up, right? You need to map it, identify them, you need to map the different technology, and you need to start classifying them. The classification process is something that we do with BIA, right? We're going to look at BIA in a few moments. That is business impact analysis. Understanding the different impacts that are applicable to my business service and understand how can I be prepared for those. How can I, instead of, if there's a flood, cloud services, that's one way of doing it. HP, Dell, you name it. You'd see there's a bunch of vendors providing replication methodologies for you guys to use. You need to map out the technology. You need to understand what technology builds up the business service. Let's take your external web pages, right? You got a web server, you got hardware, right? You got probably some dependencies for a SQL server somewhere, right? So understanding the different components of the SQL structure, the ISS, the hardware, the network, and all that, that is your business service. You need to see the whole picture. So map out the technology. This is a good one. Processes and routines. Being prepared is all about understanding the way of doing an action, right? If something goes down, you need to be prepared for that recovery option, right? The restore option, the disaster recovery option. This is vital for your company, for your business. Because when your business services stops working, what happens? You lose money, right? It could cost you a fortune, right? And if you are a service provider, your consumers may actually also, maybe not in Europe, but in America, sue you because you have a violation of the SLA. How many of you guys have service level agreements? We're going to look at what actually a service level agreement is in a few moments, but there's much to it there also. So, business impact analysis. This is what happens with my business service when it's get affected. And there's a lot of different threats out there. And you need to understand how could those threats impact my business. We have urgent versus non-urgent. Because all business services are not equally important, right? You could tier them up, like in 3 different tiers. The tier 1 business applications are the one that generates revenue, has high impact on the total business. The tier 2, the enterprise business services, are those services that are used widely and very high of the enterprise, like your email, right? Your SharePoint solutions. And you have the 3rd tier, the departmental level, like printer queues and all that. If your printer queue dies, well, you rebuild it, right? You probably have the luxury of that. So you need to understand the urgent versus non-urgent scenarios when it comes to your impact analysis. The different scenarios that you identify. If there's a flood in my data center, what do you do? Well, we need to rebuild it, we need to replicate it, we need to spin it up in Azure or in AWS or whatever cloud solution you probably could have, right? Recovery requirements. So having the recovery requirements documented, we were talking about routine and processes, right? So the recovery requirements defines how you get your business service up and running again. so you don't lose your revenue, so you don't lose your business, so you will be online 24/7. There are some tools that you could use, the RPO and RTO. And this is not droids from Star Wars. This is actually tools. So RPO is the recovery point objectives. That's how much data you could lose, right? The RTO is the recovery time objective. How fast should you be up and running again, right? Sorting those two out helps you understanding, classifying, identifying the actual need, recovery scenarios, recovery objectives for your business service or services. And guess what? It doesn't matter if you have 4, 40, or 4,000, or 40,000 business services. It all comes down to the same thing. You need to map this out. This is the starting point. This is where you begin. This is how you understand the actual need. Having that sorted out, guess what? Then you'll know what kind of technology you should invest in, what kind of staffing you should do, right? Or hire. TRA, the threat and risk analysis. So there's a bunch of things going on in different countries, of course, right? So in America, there's a lot of earthquakes, there's a lot of cyber attacks and floods, and I actually don't know the most common thing in Italy. If you guys have earthquake, I haven't heard of it, so probably not. But I guess you guys have floods, right? Yeah. So if a data hall or data center gets flooded, what do you do? If you have a power outage, what do you do? What's the scenario that is applicable to this location that my business services is running on? And here's where cloud services gets interesting, right? Here's where cloud services get interesting. Because if I have like 400 servers on-prem, or 40, or 4, doesn't matter. If those guys goes down, my business goes down. If I use Azure Site Recovery to replicate them to Azure, there's a very low cost, right? It doesn't cost you a lot of money. But when you spin them up, then it starts ticking, right? When you start to actually consume the compute power of Azure, boom, that's when the great money needs to ship in. It all comes, also we had a discussion yesterday regarding Azure Backup, and it's a very good kind of technology, but for large server, it comes very expensive, right? So you need to figure out what could I place on-prem, in Azure. Should I use off-site replicas? Hyper-V Replica. How many of you guys are using Hyper-V Replica? Good. It's a simple yet effective replication technology, right? So if you replicate between your primary data center and a hot site, you could deploy a DPM server in your hot site and back up your replicated VMs instead of disturbing the production environment, right? You get the same scenario, and you're off-site from the beginning. So that's beautiful. Integrate your Azure with either your Azure backup server or DPM server within Azure Backup Vault, and then you've got a simple and yet a very effective way of storing and archiving your protected data. You need to do the calculations first, so you know how much it will cost you. So to summarize this up with what business continuity is all about. So you need to understand your business services. You need to build a restore plan, a restore scenario. How do you restore your Exchange environment? Maybe you don't, because you got a database availability group set up, right? With the lag nodes and everything's just beautiful. Or maybe you don't. So you need to set up the entire scenario for the solution. Proactive monitoring, this is the best. Everyone wants to be proactive. I've been working with Ops Manager since like way back. Microsoft gives you the ability to monitor the different technologies they provide, right? Using management packs. Ever come to an Op Manager console and just, it looks like a Christmas tree. It's like green and gray and just red. I see this a lot. as an external consultant to Microsoft, I go in and help them with PFE, and I see a lot of ops manager consoles just shining like a Christmas tree, and they're like, Robert, this is so bad, this product is horrible. And I'm like, take it easy. Why, oh why, have you imported every single management pack written by mankind? Why? No, we thought it was a good idea. I buy that, all right, cool. But what's the actual need of monitoring? Microsoft gives you now OMS. That's beautiful, right? Is there any downsides of Operations Management Suite, do you think? Anything negative with OMS? The negative thing is you're boxed. And that comes with all cloud services, right? You buy something, this is it. I want to do, no. Can I probably change? No. This is it. This is your cloud service. Buy it or don't buy it. Still, Joseph, the PM of OMS, is now pushing the development of solutions for third parties. So soon you will see the ability of writing, like you author your own management packs, right? You can author your own solutions for OMS that will be available soon. And then OMS will be beautiful, because then you're in control, more in control. So proactive monitoring comes from actually having defined all the business services, mapped out the different technology, then you know, right? Then you know what to monitor. You know the limits of the rules you want to look at, the monitors, right? You know it. So then you can tweak it. Then you can make Ops Manager work from the first shot. Automation. Now, how does automation fit in a business continuity plan? Anyone? Well, automation is something that you should respect, because you can automate stuff good or very bad. There was this guy yesterday when I did the DPM session, I had this slide of a guy who has automated a few things at his company, and he wiped out the entire data center that was 1,500 plus servers. They just died. They just vanquished. But to spice it up a bit, he also deleted all the backups and also all the archiving. So what he did was he opened his computer, wrote an email to his boss and said, you know what, I'm quitting. You don't have to fire me. I'm quitting. So automation, please respect it. It can go horribly wrong. When you do automation, do you have like a sandbox environment, a lab environment, where you try it out first? Some of you may, some of you may not. Some of you are maybe more hardcore, I don't know. We Swedes, we're like more gentle. We want to have a lab environment, test the automation before we put it in production. And please, that's the best tip of advice I can give you. Remember the restore objectives we're talking about. Automation fits beautifully with restore objectives, because how many of you guys are doing backups? Probably everyone, right? You don't? You just replicate? You're hardcore. All right. Good. Outsourcing, like it. So automation fits beautifully with the recovery objectives, because guess what? Every single backup you do, is that valid? Because if you have a green box in your console of your backup software, is that restore point or restore capability possible? Yes or no? Anyone? The question is, in my console for my backup software, I have a green box. So everything seems fine, right? No, good. Good, man. You're going to get some Swedish candy. I like you. Super, that's right. Why? Why is that? Yes, yes. Being out and around for a few years, visiting a lot of companies and I meet a bunch of fantastic people, that's the exact thing you need to do. Restore tests. It doesn't matter if you have done like, oh, I'm using DPM, I'm using Azure Backup Server, I'm using Veeam, I'm using Symantec. I don't care. If there's a green box, there's no 100% guarantee you will be able to restore it. That's important because restore is also the disaster recovery scenarios, right? You need to know because you're in charge. I'm not. You are. You have responsibilities. Automation of a restore scenario, that's easy. Remember the little picture? Keep it simple. Please do. You don't want to add complexity to a business continuity plan. You don't want to add complexity to a recovery scenario. You don't want to go there because will you be working for the same company within 10 years? Maybe, maybe not, right? Processes and routines, remember that? Document it. How many of you guys are doing proper documentation? A few of you, I love you, all right. Documentation is so boring, I know. We guys want to do the cool stuff, right? Documentation gave me this, right? I lose my hair because of documentation. But it's so important. And it is of so high value because the things you set up in your business, that's not for you. That's for your business, right? Processes, routines, change management, right? Hello. Get that in place. Disaster recovery. All right. So disaster recovery, how many has done an actual recovery? Mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah, there's always a but, right? So disaster recovery is also something that you need to try out. And using and working with Azure Site Recovery, ASR in Azure, that gives you a planned failover, of course, and also you can perform tests. Perform tests of your disaster recovery failover. It costs you a few bucks to get started with the Azure Site Recovery. It costs you more bucks, spin the service up, of course, because then you're consuming the Azure compute. But planned failovers in Azure Site Recovery is something that you absolutely should have a look at. How many of you guys are working with ASR? There's one hand-ish. Yeah. So have a look at ASR. It's a beautiful tool. All right. Service level agreements. This is the knockers, right? So how many of you guys have SLAs? A few, right? Yeah? Good. So the thing that I see a lot is when I go out to different companies and organizations and build business continuity based on either Microsoft, Linux, or whatever kind of technology, doesn't matter. The most frequently question I ask is, do you have an SLA? The most frequently answered is, of course. Then I ask, can I see it? No. Oh, is it classified or something? Because I can sign an NDA. I'm fine with that. No, it's more, mouth to mouth SLA. That's not an SLA. Come on. And some guys actually took the time, write something, and in the very end it says best effort. Let's just sort that out. Best effort. What is that? That is there any managers in here? No managers? No managers? Oh, good. So, best effort, that's just, I don't know, air. There's nothing. Best effort is me showing up at 7 in the morning, working till 5 in the evening or in the afternoon, and go home. That's best effort. Oh, your services went down? Sure, I'll see if I can fix them. Oh, but it's lunchtime now, best effort. That is best effort. That's the mañana style, right? So service level agreements, that's an actual agreement between a service provider and a service consumer, meaning users or customers, right? You need to have that sorted out regarding business service, recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, recovery level objectives, underpinning contracts. Meaning if I have a service and you have a service and I'm dependent on your service, your and my SLA is 1 hour. The hour I give to you, who is the service consumer, is 10 hours. What service level agreements is applicable? 10 hours or 1 hour? 1 hour. Always the lowest. Always the lowest. And there's a common mistake there. People are writing service level agreements defining the business service, defining the uptime, defining a bunch of things. But they forget about the underpinning contracts or the operational level agreements from a support perspective, right? Also, very important to keep that in mind. So the customer-based service level agreements, service-based SLAs and multi-level SLAs, those are three actual categories of service level agreements that you can use. The most common is the first one. Oh, sorry, the second one, service-based SLA, describing the service you want to provide as a service provider. Or you don't have to be a service provider because you don't have to be a service provider to have an SLA, right? You could run your ordinary business, and SLA will keep you covered because since there were no managers in here, you need to do something called SMA. Ever heard of it? Save my ass. Yeah. I have a folder in my inbox that says SMA. Yeah, because all my agreements I do with clients and customers, that is, you and I, we agree that 1 + 1 is 2, right? Yeah. Can we agree on that in a written form? I save that. Because then we know, right? Then we know what's the deal. And the same goes with you guys. Setting up a service level agreement, if you're not a service provider, it doesn't matter. What matters is you define the business service. You define and help your managers, your board members understand that, oh, this service, it is important. I didn't know that. Wow. SLA this? Oh, okay. You will be surprised how happy they will be. All right. So possible technologies. There's a bunch of different technologies out there. Ever find it hard to choose or pick one? The most common thing I hear is that, Robert, there's no white paper on this. There's no best practices when it comes to business continuity. And the answer is true. There's none. Your business and your business, maybe you work for the same company now, I don't know, but is it the same? 100%? Of course not. And your servers are not the same. Of course not. And you're using some kind of technology and you're using another one, right? So best practices? No. Just for, white papers, best practices from Microsoft is something you should absolutely you can read so you can set up a proof of concept environment to try it out. But then from the proof of concept environment, when you tried it, then you know how to scale it, right? Because anyone look at the required hardware requirements for system center products. That's like, oh, deploy an Ops Manager server with this amount of RAM and local SQL and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what? Really? So this is just pure hardcore work. You need to invent the wheel every time. Unfortunately, but that's the truth. So the possible technologies out there. Let's take SQL. There's this possibility of running, of course, SQL in Azure. Yes, it costs money, of course. But what gives that? That gives you the beneficial of not having it on-prem. you have a service agreement from Microsoft stating that this is my uptown, right? So there's pros and cons of everything, right? You can use Site Recovery Manager with SQL Always On to get that beautiful experience of disaster recovery for your SQL environment. You can also use Azure Backup, backing up your SQL ISS that is located in Azure. You can use a DPM server in Azure, backing up the SQLs that runs in Azure, of course. And this is just a few, right? Files and folders. If you have a bunch of files and folders, don't underestimate Windows Backup. Please don't. Because Windows Backup is the same technology that DPM uses also. Let's take, for example, when DPM does system state backups, how many of you guys are working with DPM? There's a few heroes in the crowd. Boom, awesome. So when DPM backs up system states, it goes to Windows Backup and trigger that from that API, right? And pushing it up to Azure, boom. Then you have your disaster recovery already in place, right? In your archiving. System state, as I'm saying, DPM, Windows Backup feature, there you go. Your Active Directory. Integrate that with your Azure AD. That gives you a lot of possibilities, right? That provides you a future guaranteed for consuming different cloud services. Because integrating your on-prem Active Directory with Azure AD and have the DIR sync set up and running, for example, then it's so smooth moving on to like Office 365 or something else, right? Exchange. Some of you may, some of you may not use Exchange. So you can back it up with Windows Backup, DPM, or you can be a little bit more hardcore. Just set up a DAG environment, right? Using also lag nodes. Some say that having a proper Exchange environment set up and running, we don't need backup. You know what? That is almost true. Almost true. I'll tell you what. Having an environment, an Exchange environment set up that is proper, with a proper set of DAG nodes and lag nodes, and that the retention, beautiful, right? It goes back to the processes and routines. Explaining to the users that if you delete an object, it's gone. But also enable the policy where it's possible for the user to restore that deleted object using hard deleted objects, right? This is something that's been around since like 2003. Enable that. And also, will a proper DAG environment protect you from corruption? Yes or no? Corrupted data? Maybe not. True. So Microsoft did a test. Microsoft Europe did a test of not using a backup for their Exchange environment. But they also realized that, maybe we should have a backup. So the backup solution for Exchange, the purpose of it is more or less data corruption, right? SharePoint. How many of you guys are using SharePoint? Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. So SharePoint is an interesting tool. It is very complex, right? I think we all can agree on that. The complexity of SharePoint is like, I don't know, like my marriage, right, or something. So you got ISS, you got file structures, you got SQL databases, you got external web pages, you got links, you got boom. There's a lot to it. The restore scenarios for SharePoint. Either you can use the central admin, right? Work with the management shell for that and set that up, automate that beautifully with PowerShell. That's possible, of course. Or you can go with DPM. Because what DPM does, it gives you the possibility of backing up an entire SharePoint farm and make that recovery level objectives more feasible, more visible, right? Should you restore the entire farm, or just a site, or an individual object? DPM gives you the ability to quick and easy, set this up and protect the farm. And if you haven't tried DPM protecting SharePoint, please do. You won't be disappointed. And if you don't have a System Center license, guess what? Take your manager's credit card, go to the Azure portal, sign up for a trial, and download Azure Backup Server. The Azure Backup Server is actually a DPM server, right? So it will protect the SharePoint. And you can integrate that with the Azure Backup Vault for archiving. So try it out. Try it out. Hyper-V VMware. Last year at Ignite in Chicago, I did a session regarding the new features that are coming with DPM with the team. And we pronounced we presented that now it's possible to back up VMware. So the cross-platform thing is really going on there with DPM also, because Microsoft realized they must do it, right? You got other competitors like Veeam, they're doing a super job. Actually, they're super, of course. So Microsoft realized that, if we're going to stay in the market, we need to go cross-platform. So from Ignite, like a year back, there's been a legal thing going on between VMware and Microsoft. But in the release of 2016 of DPM, you will be able to back up your VMs running on VMware. And this is also something that is available in the TP5 release. So if you want to try it out, do it. It's agentless, which is the pro, right? No deployment, no bits you need to run on an ESX server. That's a pro. When it comes to disaster recovery of the different Hyper-V or VMware environments, you can go with Azure Site Recovery. Set that up. Also, you can replicate your Linux and Unix servers also using the Scout. This software that collects all the information located on a Linux box and replicate that to Azure. So that's possible also. So the workloads drive the business continuity tools of choice. And no, there's no best practice. You need to sort out what is applicable, what's my license forms, what do I have, what I need to invest, right? So, Ops Manager. I bet my current Ops Manager, it did work, and you could do also, because Ops Manager is really something that you can benefit from. Also, OMS, when the authoring experience is up and running for you guys to author your own solutions, I don't think we're going to see much more of Ops Managers running around anymore. I think a lot of customers will go to OMS. So, having set up your Windows backup, monitor that. Monitor your Hyper-V replica. Use Ops Manager as that single pane of glass, looking at your different services you have deployed, protecting your business service, providing your business service, scaling out your business service instead of scaling up. So are you guys working with the cloud concept of scale out instead of scale up, or do you just purchase more hardware? Try to scale out. The reason is quite simple. Your revenue, either as time or money, will be higher. Automation, service provisioning, all that works beautifully if you work with scale-out concept, right? How many of you guys are working with VMM? For the other of you, please try it out. It's quite a good, interesting product. It has its pros and cons as every kind of piece of technology, of course, but try it out. Having monitoring experience for your Azure subscription and virtual network health. There's a bunch of management packs for this also. Also, community management packs they can use, monitoring the service health of this. So, having this up and running, this is just a few examples of what is possible for you to monitor with Ops Manager in different scenarios. So this will be converted into OMS within time. So OMS is absolutely the future. So a few minutes ago when I asked you if you were using Azure Site Recovery, just a few of you, or none actually, raised their hand, right? Is there anyone working with Azure Site Recovery? No, just a little wave, yeah. So Azure Site Recovery, it simplifies your business continuity disaster recovery strategy. Replicating your VMs up to Azure costs you just a few bucks, right? Or a few euro. Spin them up, of course, then you start consuming, and then it starts cost. You can either set this up using VMM integration, either you can use it as a failure or hot site functionality. You can also use your Hyper-V manager to set this up. If you want to go from the Azure portal, you need the VMM integration. You need to set up and provide your infrastructure, right? So VMM is of course something you need to set up. If you don't have VMM and you just want to replicate from your Hyper-V host, that's also possible, but then you need to start the work on-prem. Start configuring your Hyper-V host, and then go to the Azure portal and do the configuration, right? So this last one, eliminates secondary data center. Actually, it does. There's a lot of companies that are using Azure as their secondary hot site or data center. There are just a few companies, and I haven't, to be honest, bumped into any companies that are working 100% with Azure. There will always be some kind of stuff on-prem, right? Like a local active domain controller, perhaps, or a printer key, or just a few servers on-prem. I haven't heard of a company that is working 100% just in Azure. So Azure Backup. I know that a few of you has tried this out. How many of you guys are working with Azure Backup? Cool. So you want to share your experience? Do you like it? Yeah? It's quite simple, right? Quite simple. But it costs. It costs. If you have a large environment, and you want to protect a large environment, it costs you a lot of money. And that's, yeah, and that is one thing that maybe or maybe not keeping companies more restrictive. What it does, it's a basic disaster recovery tool within the cloud concept. And we'll have a look at it. The RTO value of working with Azure Backup is quite simple to accomplish. But first thing first, you need to know what is my recovery time objectives before we put stuff in Azure. Simple as that. So building the concept. Start from the bottom up. Simple as that. It all starts here, right? The management starts there. You need to start here, understanding the different technologies out there. What network, what hardware, what storage are you using? Then, what kind of servers do I have? What kind of, different kind of applications does those services run? How do I protect my certificates, my IISs, my files, my proxy functionalities on that service? How can I integrate with Azure? So, let's have a look. So the first thing, this is a new portal, right? The new Azure portal. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start providing a new recovery service wall. And this is not, you don't have to be a member of Mensa to do this. I have 3 kids back home. They can do it. My twins are 5 years old. They can do this. This is really, really simple. So, soon we will see SID-2 coming up here as the new recovery service vault. So having this set up, there you go. Having this set up, you will be able to either set up a site recovery, and here's the steps. The first one is to prepare your infrastructure, right? Preparing your infrastructure, this is, click, 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 simple as that. So what do you want to do? Well, I want to go to Azure. Are your machines virtual? Yeah, it is. All right, cool. And this guide just walks you through all the single steps needed to get started with site recovery. So Azure Site Recovery is that central thing in Azure, central management point that you either could use as a replication as a secondary data center, or you can use Azure Site Recovery as a centralized management point between your data centers. Why you want to do that? Why don't you want to have your management point on-prem? Of course not. You don't want to have it here. You want to put it up there because this is like the steering wheel of your car, right? If you lose that data center, you will lose the capability. All right, so this is really, really simple to set up. When it comes to Azure Backup, same things here. The first question is, where does your workloads run? Run in Azure? No, I have it on-prem. Okay. What do you want to back up? I want to back up my Hyper-V, some SQL, some SharePoint, and I go with some Exchange today. All right. So what happens now is we're being informed that we need to download the Azure Backup Server. And for the few in the audience that also attended the session last day, this is Azure Backup Server. My entire demo yesterday was an Azure Backup Server because it is DPM. It is the same thing. The only thing that differentiates Azure Backup Server with DPM is a few reports. The tape reports are missing because there's no tape support in Azure Backup Server because Microsoft wants your money and wants you to put it up in Azure. If you want tape support, you have to go with DPM. And this takes too long. So the same thing here. You have your agents you deploy. The agents is actually DPM agents. It's the same code, the same commandlets, the same switches, everything. Yesterday, I made an example of how you should and not set up protection groups in DPM. And one thing that I see often is this. Naming convention, come on. Protection group 1, what does that contain, right? So what you need to do in Azure or whatever kind of backup software you're using, use a naming convention that is, explain it. This is a file workload. I back it up once per day, 8 a.m. in the morning. I synchronize it for every second hour. I archive it to Azure at 8 p.m. Oh, then we will have a structure. Also this. This is something I see a lot. Let's take this baby instead. All right. Anyone recognize this? Yeah. Is this good? No. This is a nightmare. Why? Here's the thing. The architecture that initiates the backups is VSS. VSS, that's the architecture. The function, the feature is, of course, Windows Server Backup when it comes to system state backups. All right, so hear me out now. If I have like 5 different VSSs that initiates and will start doing backup, how much will that cost the server? Well, that will cost the server a lot because it will consume a lot of compute. Let's take system state backups. Oh my God. Don't get me started. System state backups. Why do you do backup of your system state? Anyone? Why? Well, if it's a domain controller, of course, do it. If it's a production server that you have altered DCOM objects, absolutely. If you alter the sysvol catalog, sure, do it. But please, granularity, please. You don't have to back up a system state every day. I have a client in New York. He's so funny. He's Italian, by the way. Yeah. He's so funny. He's a good man. He said, Roberto, I have a problem with my VPN. So I went up, connected, and I said, well, you know what? Why is this virtual? See, okay. So why do you back up? Why do you do bare metal recovery of a virtual server 3 times a day? He's like, I don't know. Me neither. What's the need? Well, it is quite an important server. All right. It's virtual, right? Yeah. Runs on Hyper-V? Yeah. So you set this up for what? Oh, disaster recovery. No. Delete this. If you have a virtual server, never, ever, ever back up this. This is just a waste of storage. Yesterday, I talked about the modern DPM storage, the MDS. It gives you 30-40% of saving in DPM when it comes to storage, 3 times optimization, and a few other benefits. But still, doing this is just so wrong. The reason is it will consume compute. And if you back up your system state, your C drive, your D drive, and the shares at the same time, no. If this were a server that was a part of a business service, guess what? That business service would have a poor performance, extremely poor performance. And DPM, there's a lot of people complaining that, oh, DPM is so slow. It takes a lot of time. Well, guess what? If you do it this way, of course it will take forever. And also SQL. Every System Center product depends on SQL. Please, do not deploy SQL using next, finish. Please, I beg you. That's a horrible idea. Use also service accounts for the SQL service, for the agent, and for the reporting. Why? Why do you want to do that? Let's have an example. A client of mine in Germany didn't go with service account. They were like, scheiße. So they just deployed it using the same account on like 20 DPM servers. Guess what happened? That account got corrupted. The SID broke. And they're like, oh, scheiße, Autobahn. And I'm like, yeah. Meaning the recovery service died just because of a poor design. This has nothing to do with the product. This has to do with how you set the product up, right? And of course, I know, TechNet, that's horrible. The information, or the information that is not available on TechNet, please. So there's a bunch of missing components here, of course, I get that. So what if I want to go with the guys and girls I have in Azure? So right now, you're just able to back up virtual machines in Azure. You will see some cool things coming on here within time, being able to back up workloads, like your SQL, like your SharePoint, like your whatever, right? It will pop up here because like 90% of the developers at Microsoft are just working with Azure. So you will see it. Setting up this is also very easy. Maybe not my youngest twins that are 5 can do it, but my oldest one that's 8, he can do this. Either you go with the default policy, or you can create your own one. And you can decide your retention policy of choice. Or you can just go with the default policy, so we can continue the demo. Boom. The items that you could back up is now populated both from the old console and the new console. Look, this server is deployed or provisioned from the new portal, right? The other guys are from the old portal, this portal. So now you're able to protect those guys in the new portal also. So what you do is you select the different servers you want to protect, hit OK, and you submit the deployment. And having the possibility also to change your policy, of course. From the items you have, it needs to be replicated. So from the items you have previously protected, you will be able, thank you, you will be able to change your schedule. This is also very easy. So let's take this guy. What do you want to do? Well, I want to change my backup policy. Boom. So from here you can decide that, oh, my RTO value of this has changed. So setting up the policies, the policy design in Azure Backup is crucial. Super important. How should you design them? Anyone? Any ideas? Yes! Oh, I don't have any more Swedish candy, but you got a Swedish t-shirt yesterday, too. Ah, mucho bene. So, yeah, the policy should reflect the actual need of the restore, right? Backup is simple. Backup is super simple. I could write a script that then, dump all your VMs. That's a no-brainer. But I need to use more of my brains writing a script, restoring it.